Hey there, welcome to our channel which takes you on a haunting exploration of the world of true crimes, serial killers, and unsolved mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss another thrilling video. Now get comfortable, turn off the lights, and prepare to be captivated by the sinister side of human nature as we delve into today's bone-chilling story. You could call him a real-life boogeyman, not as well known as the Ted Bundy or Charles Manson, yet still one of the most vicious serial killers in American history. In the mid-80s, the Night Stalker was more than a man, he was a collective nightmare. And when the police finally caught him, people wanted to know everything. He was an avowed Satanist, whose crimes didn't just terrify communities, they made him this object of intrigue. So who was Richard Ramirez? Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer. Ramirez spent 2 years of his life raping and torturing over 25 victims and killing more than a dozen people. Most of these crimes were committed in the victims' California homes. By the time he was charged with the Night Stalker murders, Richard was only 25 years old. It's hard to say that any one or two things that happened up until then are what made him a serial killer, but looking back at his life does provide some chilling clues. Richard was born the youngest of 5 children on February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. His mother, Mercedes, worked at a boot factory, and his father, Julian, was an Army veteran who worked on the Santa Fe Railway. Growing up, Richard was a troubled kid. When he was 2 years old, he was reaching for a radio when a dresser fell on his head, leaving him with 30 stitches and a concussion. 3 years later, Richard was at a playground when a swing knocked him unconscious, and he was rushed to the hospital again and sent home with more stitches. Richard was having seizures in class. It's unclear if the head injuries are what caused them, but Richard was diagnosed with epilepsy that school year, and seizures continued until he was a teenager. Experts say this could be what caused him to have disturbing visions and vivid dreams. And also, a lot of this happened due to his older cousin, Mike, who had just returned from fighting in Vietnam. He was a war hero and Richard idolized him. Mike would tell him gruesome stories and show him pictures of the torture he would inflict upon at least 20 Vietnamese women. Mike introduced drugs to Ramirez, which consequently resulted in Ramirez committing petty crimes. He also became a Satan worshipper. Because of this rebellion, Ramirez became alienated from his parents. The first serious crime that Ramirez was involved in was the murder of his cousin's wife. Although Mike was the one who murdered his wife in front of both of his kids, Ramirez was at the scene of the crime and didn't do anything to stop it. Mike was arrested, and Richard says that's when he became obsessed with killers, crime, murder, and death. In 1977, Ramirez was sent to a juvenile detention center for a series of petty crimes. In addition, he was put on probation for marijuana possession in 1982. Soon after these 2 crimes, Ramirez moved to California and continued to commit crimes such as burglary and possession of cocaine, as well as a car theft charge, which resulted in a jail sentence. On June 28, 1984, Ramirez committed his first murder. 9-year-old May Linda Leung lived in an apartment a few blocks away from where Richard lived. One day, May's brother left her alone while she looked for a dollar bill she dropped. When he came back to the basement, he found his sister there, stabbed to death. Even with the evidence, May's murder became a cold case, but after 2 decades, DNA samples collected in 1984 at the crime scene were able to match his DNA, Richard Ramirez. The 79-year-old victim was sexually assaulted, stabbed, and murdered in her own home. In just 1 year, Ramirez had murdered a dozen people and tortured 25 of them. After many delays, in 1989, Richard Ramirez, age 29, was sentenced to the conviction of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. In July 1988, Ramirez made his first court appearance. He pleaded not guilty to all the charges against him, but before he left the courtroom, Ramirez raised his hand to show a drawing of a pentagram on his palm. "Hail Satan," he said as he exited the room. He was held in San Quentin State Prison for the rest of his life, but he was never put to death. Due to the complicated nature of his case, which included a 5,000-page trial record, the state Supreme Court wasn't able to hear his appeal until 2006. In 1996, Richard Ramirez married longtime fan Doreen Leoy at San Quentin Prison in California. Leoy left Ramirez in 2009 when his DNA was matched to samples collected in the 1994 San Francisco murder scene. Ramirez was sentenced to die in California's gas chamber. His remarks to this were, "Big deal, death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland." 24 years after the sentence, Ramirez had been on death row for more than 23 years. Ramirez died from B-cell lymphoma at the age of 53 on June 7, 2013. As we reach the chilling conclusion of our journey into the life and crimes of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, thank you for watching, and remember to stay safe, lock your doors, and be vigilant. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more chilling true crime stories. Until next time, sleep tight if you can.